Namaste, everyone. Michele Granberg and Electra here. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy. On this show, we're talking about chickens. Most people never really get to know a chicken, but those who do invariably fall in love with these endearing individuals. Research shows that chickens are intelligent and behaviorally sophisticated. They have complex social interactions. They communicate with each other and their chicks still in their eggs. Every chicken has a unique personality. Overall, they are nurturing, feel empathy, and even dream when they sleep. My guest is someone who knows chickens, Justin Van Kleeck of Triangle Chicken Advocates. So stay where you are, because Positive Energy starts right now. So I'm here with Justin Van Kleeck. Justin, welcome to Positive Energy.
Thank you for having me.
So you're on the show to talk about chickens today. In the U.S., more than 9 billion chickens are raised and killed for food. And worldwide, over 50 billion are slaughtered yearly. What's your first reaction to those when you hear those terrible statistics?
Yeah, I mean, the statistics are overwhelming. It's really hard to even kind of comprehend what that means in terms of the impacts on individual animals. And for me, as someone who spends my entire life devoted to rescuing, caring for individual chickens, I have to think about that in terms of individual, beings. And so the way I look at it is it's not just this massive quantity, but it's one individual chicken slaughtered 50 billion times over every single year. And that doesn't even factor in the number who are currently living in the system who aren't slaughtered but are on their way to being slaughtered. And so the numbers are just astronomical. But for me, I always think about it in terms of the individuals,
Individual.
and the individuals whom I know at my sanctuary and are part of, my family. And so when I look at it through that lens, it's sometimes hard not to be completely overwhelmed and downtrodden at that thought. But at the same time, it also, continues to remind me why it's so important to advocate for veganism along with doing the rescue and education work for chickens.
Yeah, the numbers are astronomical and hard to wrap your brain around. But you're right, they're not just numbers. Each
Right.
one was an individual. So let's talk more about the individual known as a chicken. So the egg and meat industry is really hidden from public view, but give us a little peek behind the curtain. What do you want most? What do you want people to know the most that they don't know in terms of how hens are treated, how male chicks are treated as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the hens. For me, as someone who like we do almost all of our, I would say 99% of our rescue work involves chickens who are coming from like backyard situations and not from the large, industrial farms that are commonly called factory farms with battery cages and tens of thousands of hens stuffed into sheds and things like that. And so for us, like the way that we look at the impact on hens in the egg industry, especially, is that it's really kind of a continuum from the worst of the worst that are in these large scale farms to the suffering that goes on like in backyard flocks with chickens for eggs. And so just to run through really quickly, so hens who are used for food. They're born in hatcheries. They're not born under a mother's wing. They typically only live till about 18 to 24 months, when their egg laying starts to decline slightly. At that age, killed, definitely in industrial farms, but also in a lot of smaller scale farms. They're usually slaughtered at about 24 months age. And then their bodies are used for everything from like pet food to other packaged and processed products. And during the time of their life, they're prone to all sorts of very serious reproductive disorders that come from the fact that they've been bred to lay so many eggs. And so even if they live up to the age of 24 months and they're slaughtered, a lot of times before that they die from a number of common reproductive diseases. So many of them are suffering from everything from reproductive problems to osteoporosis and broken bones, and and of course, as well, the conditions that they live in, like, crammed into small cages or sheds with, tens of thousands of other hens. As far as the roosters go, they also were born from the same hatcheries, but unlike the hens, they're usually killed within the first 2 hours of being born, because nobody wants roosters, especially because they don't lay eggs. So typically hatcheries will sex chicks and they'll kill the males either, a number of horrible methods. And for those few roosters who do make it out alive of the hatcheries, once they start to show signs of being male at a few months old, they're usually killed or dumped in the woods and abandoned. Um, and so very few roosters, only a small percentage of roosters actually make it past the first day of life. And then those that do, a smaller percentage are able to live, the extent of their life because they're not wanted.
So sad. So sad and
Yeah,
tragic. And on top of that, people are led to believe that they're treated humanely, or people
right.
like to believe that, plus they're led to believe that. Is there such a thing as humane in these industries, or is it really just a hoax, sort of a smokescreen?
Yeah, no, that's a really important question, and it's kind of like the focus of what my entire life is about, doing advocacy. Again, because we've rescued hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chickens over the 6 years that we've been doing this sanctuary and rescue work, and as I said, 95% of them have come from backyards. So I've seen every type of suffering that happens in backyard type situations with people backyard chickens for eggs and for other, for food. And so for me, I don't believe that there's any humane way to keep an animal for food. Even if we only focus on kind of like the aesthetic things, like the living conditions and the way they're treated, when you commodify another being, you're only going to go so far to give them the fullest quality of care and life that they, ideally deserve. Because at some point, it becomes not expedient to spend more money or spend more time on protecting their welfare. Because in the end, all you really want is the food that they're providing.
Yeah.
And even people who say that they keep them for pets, but still continue to use them for food, ultimately modifying their body, participating in an industry that, as we're talking about, kills billions and billions and billions of individuals a year. And so, the harms that come from egg laying mean that there's no ethical or humane way to take an egg from a hen and then eat that for your own food when you don't need to. There's no biological reason for humans to eat eggs. So for us, when we take those eggs from them, we're participating in the suffering that they go due to the number of eggs that they lay every year.
Yeah. It's so extreme when you start to really look at it that way from a big point of view. Like, what right do we have in the first place to touch them, to force them to be born and then only to kill them? And so, absolutely. And so because chickens are really thought of as things and commodities and abstractions, I'm here. I want you to help us make them more real. Make them more know how they are individuals and beautiful individuals. And I want to thank you already for the work, the rescue work that you're doing. So chickens are from the tropical jungles of Southeast Asia, right? So so say a little bit about that. What's it like?
Yeah.
And they're still there. And what's it like for them now living wild and free? What was it like back then?
Absolutely. Yeah, so just a real quick history of domestication for chickens. They were domesticated kind of around the same time, roughly, as other common food animals. So cows and goats and things. So it was about 8 to 10,000 years ago when they were starting to be domesticated. And their wild ancestors are the red jungle fowl of Southeast Asia. And the interesting thing with chickens is that the red jungle fowl still exist in Southeast Asia. So scientists and people can observe them. They can observe their flock behaviors, the ways that they live in the wild, as well as their biology. And so it's really fascinating to compare and contrast modern domesticated chickens with their, free living ancestors, because just in terms of egg laying, modern domesticated laying breeds, and I'm talking about all of the heritage breeds and backyard breeds, as well as the industrial, laying breeds, they lay 20 to 30 times as many eggs as their ancestors do in a year. Um, so if you think about that from like just a pure evolutionary perspective, there's no scenario in which that makes sense from an evolutionary, and biological perspective. It destroys their bodies. It's huge toll on their internal organs, on their bones, bone structure, everything. It's been completely commandeered by humans through selective breeding for maximal egg laying. And so with the red jungle fowl, they live in small flocks with multiple roosters and multiple hens. The hens usually only lay 1 or 2 clutches of eggs a year, so they're only laying anywhere from 10 to 20 eggs a year total. And they can live up to 15 years in the wild, and in captivity they can live up to 30, which is so fascinating when you compare that to modern chickens who are lucky to make it past the age of 2. I hear people talking about their old, senior chickens who are like 8 years old. And honestly, that's not even middle age. An 8-year-old chicken is not even middle aged if you compare them to the lifespan of their ancestors. So it's really useful to think about the red jungle fowl as kind of the free and autonomous ideal of what chickens should be without human meddling. And then when you look at what we've done to them, because we want to use their bodies and their eggs for food, it's so clear how tragic and harmful and inhumane that history of domestication has been. And so that's why I'd say when taking an egg from a hen, no matter where she lives, is harmful. It's because it relies upon that history of domestication, and it relies on that hijacking of their reproductive systems and their biology for our benefit.
Yeah. Thank you for putting it into that perspective and making the comparison of the wild chickens versus these ones that we've captured and altered. And because of speciesism being so indoctrinated into us, that we've divided a line between animals we love and animals we don't love and treat this way, people forget that just like dogs and cats, chickens are sentient beings. So say a little bit about how intelligent they are, and they love their babies, they form their family, they stick together if allowed, they'll stay in a family together, and they bond with each other, communicate with each other, and they can bond, obviously they bond with humans as well if they feel safe enough to do that.
Oh, no, it's fascinating. I mean, we live with cats and dogs and chickens and other species, and I tell you honestly, some of the strongest relationships that I have are with some of our chicken family members.
I love that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And so they're very intelligent, like all animals. They have their own language of communication with each other. Chickens can recognize up to like 100 faces, like individual distinct faces. And they have their own methods of socialization and their own relationships to form. And we see it all the time at our sanctuary. We see, like, for example, we have a large rooster flock. It's all rooster. Over 20 roosters live together in the same space. And, so we have this flock that's kind of its own big unit, but within that flock, we see friendships form. So like 2 or 3 roosters who are always hanging out together, and, they snuggle at night. They always come out together in the morning, and they do their little rooster dances around each other. And, they have these relationships that they formed, and they weren't born together. They didn't come into our sanctuary together, but they formed these bonds, as they got to know other people, other roosters in the flock. And we see the same thing with hens. Every situation, they're always doing the sort of social dynamics and, relationship building that we do. And so for me, like, that's why it's so important. One thing that we do when we rescue someone and bring them to our sanctuary is we have to build that relationship with them. So we have to become part of the flock with them. And so it's very fascinating for me to think about the dynamics of building relationship and building trust with one of our sanctuary residents, and then compare that to what farmers do And, humane farmers will talk about the relationships they have with the animals and they love their animals and it's like a wonderful thing. But what they do when building that relationship is they use that as kind of a smokescreen to the end
Yeah.
result, which
They
is killing that
betray
animal.
them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so for me, if I think about all that it takes to build trust and make a relationship with an animal who comes into our sanctuary, the thought of then being betraying that animal, betraying that trust is just, it's truly horrifying.
Yeah.
And so that's why I never believe in humane animal farming, because it's all about that, kind of subterfuge of supposedly being trusting and caring, when in the end, all you really want
To
is what
use
the animal
them. Yeah.
gives you.
Yeah, that's not a relationship, right?
No, it's not. It's a commodification. It's just a different type of way of using them. And so it's really not any better in the end.
Yeah. So we're so much more alike with the animals. They're just like you and me in all the ways that matter. And
Hmm.
so you have lots of chicken friends and residents there. Um, let's talk about one of them and tell us just a little brief background of their story.
Sure.
How about Beatrice?
Beatrice, yeah. So Beatrice was a hen we rescued in 2014. She came to us in the summer. She was a chick that somebody bought for Easter and then decided they didn't want. It's very common, with baby ducks, baby chickens, baby rabbits. And so when she came to our sanctuary, a few months after she got there, we noticed that she was having some health issues. And so she had a very common reproductive problem that we were able to treat, and heal her and get better. Then a few months after that, she developed another common reproductive problem that hens have. And so it's called egg yolk peritonitis. It's when egg material gets into their abdomen and causes an infection, basically. It's one of the number one killers of hens. And in addition to that, when we took her to our vet and started, figuring out what was going on, our vet also found on doing X-rays that her bones were completely just eaten away from egg laying. And so he said to us, like, if we can avoid picking her up, we really should try not to touch her, because her bones were so fragile from all the egg laying that she had done. And so we were able to do medication and some other things to treat her for those conditions. And a year later, we did another X-ray, and her bones were perfect. We had allowed her to stop egg laying for a year, and it had made it possible for her bones to completely regrow and heal. And so she was the picture of health. She was the alpha hen in the flock, and so she would, boss everybody around. And she was beautiful, and had friends and everything like that in her flock. And then in the late spring of 2017, she started to show signs that she wasn't feeling well again. And so we took her to the vet again, and unfortunately, she died. And so we did an autopsy to see if we could figure out what had caused her death. And when we did that, we found like a baseball size mass of egg material. And what this is called is it's an impaction. What happens is egg material gets stuck in their oviduct, and because their bodies are over 100 degrees, the egg material just cooks over time. And as more eggs are laid, it just makes it bigger and bigger and bigger. And so she had this baseball-sized lump of egg material that our vet said had been inside of her for probably 3+ years, and before she even came to our sanctuary. And so she had been walking around looking perfectly healthy with this big mass of egg material that was
Right.
slowly, becoming basically like abscessed. So it had abscessed and caused her body to have a massive infection. And so this is very common. It's like I said, these are the main killers of laying hens, and it's just really says a lot to me, because she looks so healthy, yet at the same time she was dealing with such a major health issue because of egg laying. And so when people talk about like their backyard hens are so happy and healthy and they look great, um, so many of them are probably walking around with these same problems and they're just not showing it.
Right.
And so, it was really devastating for us to lose her, but it also really showed us just how damaging these egg laying related health problems can be, and also how well they hide them from from other people to see.
It's such a hard ending. I mean, you saved her, but you couldn't ultimately save her from the sickness caused by human interference, and it's so common. And it must also be stress, must have exacerbated that as well, just the stress of being under those conditions, as well as the physical ramifications, of what she went through. Her little body broken.
Yeah, no, the stress of laying eggs almost every day, it has impacts on their bodies, not just in the reproductive system, but their immune systems, their other organs like their hearts and their livers. It's systemic, the impact that it has. And one thing that I think it's really important for everyone to understand is because the harms of animal agriculture are biological with domesticated animals, when a chicken gets to our sanctuary, they're still not liberated. They still have to deal with all of these consequences of being bred to make food for humans. And so that's why for us, it's not just about getting into a sanctuary. After that, we provide them with lifetime care. And it takes a lot of work, it's a lot of expense to try to keep them healthy. But we do it for their well-being, not for anything that benefits us, unlike farmers. And so we're dedicated to trying to keep them alive, despite all these things that they're going to continue to have to deal with for the remainder of their life. And we see it as a whole too. It just, it's always a challenge.
It's life-saving work, but often it's just about keeping them comfortable for as long as they're going to be around and be with you. So with that being said, say just a little bit about Triangle Chicken Advocates that you started and what you do.
Yeah, so we started in February 2014. We became a sanctuary after rescuing 2 hens from the local shelter, Clementine and Amandine. We didn't have a lot of chicken experience before then. We had mostly been doing cat and dog rescue, and we just fell madly in love with them. And so we dedicated our lives to, learning more about chickens, both their biology and their health, but also the best ways to provide a sanctuary home for them. And so since then, we've really focused on creating educational material about chickens, about building a safe habitat for them, and one that's fits their natural instincts more. And we work with a lot of other rescues and sanctuaries around the world to grow the access to really cutting edge information about their care and about who they are. And we also started the micro sanctuary movement later that year to kind of help inspire other vegans who do activism to think about doing small scale rescue for farm animals as well.
So I would like everybody to donate to you to help so you can do more and bring more chickens home.
Yeah, we are a 501c3. We're located in central North Carolina. And we really focus on local animals. So we're one of the few rescues in our state who will go out and catch stray chickens. And we work a lot with local animal shelters to find to find safe homes for chickens, vegan homes for chickens, and sanctuary homes. Because animal control has to deal with a lot of the victims of backyard farming who aren't wanted anymore, and they really don't have capacity or knowledge of how to care for chickens well. So they work with us a lot to try to help, get them to safe spaces as soon as possible.
So in closing, say just a few final words about what you hope maybe for the future for chickens and what you want to leave people with.
Absolutely. Well, I hope people will take the opportunity to get more interested in who chickens are as individuals, and ideally get the opportunity to meet them and to learn more about them. I think even vegans inherit a lot of species attitudes towards chickens and don't find them particularly interesting as individuals. So please, find sanctuaries in your area or sanctuaries online who really focus on chickens as individuals so that you can learn more about them, learn more about what happens to them in the industry, and both on like large scale farms and backyard farms, and really become an advocate for chickens by refusing to promote or give the okay to like backyard chicken and things like that. So what we really would like to do is for people to see chickens as kind of an emblem for why veganism is the only humane lifestyle choice, because no matter where chickens live, if they're being used for food, they're going to be suffering in whole.
That's a really valuable and really important lesson, and I wholeheartedly agree with that and hope we can reach people with that message, and I hope that it will sink in. Let's more love, more kindness, more saving, more rescuing. Let's look at a future. Let's hope for a future for that. So, Justin, just continue the work that you're doing. Thank you for being on my show today. I wish you all the best, you and your chicken family.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Electra and I are wrapping up another enlightening show. My hope is that one day we learn to share the earth equally with animals instead of dominate them. Start by educating yourself about chickens and other exploited farm animals. Go volunteer at a farm animal sanctuary near you. Let's envision a world of respect and compassion for all beings, whether furry, four-legged, feathered, finned, or scaled. Thank you, Monday Morning Flowers Princeton, for the beautiful floral arrangement. Thank you for watching. Go vegan, vote blue, and join us next time on Positive Energy. Hey guys, I just wanted to take this opportunity to give a heartfelt gratitude of a shout out to my director, Sharon Murray. She is the person who is so creative behind the scenes, polishes my show up, and makes it the absolute best that it can be. And so truly, Sharon, thank you for everything you've done for this show and for this station. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I put a little bunny ears behind
Okay,
you.
good. Okay, that's cool.
Okay.
Was that V for vegan?